Live from the 8th Layer Media Studios in the back rooms of the deep web, this is the FAIK Files.
When tech gets weird, we are here to make sense of it. I'm Perry Carpenter.
And I'm Mason Amadeus, and this week we've got a fun show for you with a lot of different things. We're going to start it off by talking about how Google has dropped Gemini 3 and a suite of new tools, including a code editor, and it is a pretty remarkable model.
Oh, nice. Then we're going to move on and talk about how AI has been shown to implant false memories in people, specifically AI-edited audio and video.
That is terrifying. Our third segment, we'll move on to something just a little bit weird, sent in by Bullethead from our Discord community. This parallel generation of image and text to make models more able to understand the context of images while they're editing.
Ooh.
I'll explain it in the segment. It's called Parallel Multimodal Large Diffusion Language Models for Thinking Aware Editing and Generation. So we'll kind of try and cut through that a little bit
of a mouthful. Yeah. And then we're going to end out with a little bit more on the manipulative front. And this is some of the disinformation campaigns that have been coming out of Russia and some that have been coming out of the Middle East and what that means for people that are analyzing this stuff.
A grab bag of tech and deception this week. So sit back, relax, and remember, it's not a bubble. It's just a circular investment strategy. We'll open up the FAIK Files right after this. So Google dropped Gemini 3, and it is honestly pretty darn impressive. Not just Gemini 3, the model, but a whole suite of tools and other things attached to it. And we're going to break down sort of all of it, but I'm going to start in a weird place because I have a demo for this segment that I think is going to be fun, Perry. So one of the things that they launched along with Gemini 3 is this product called Antigravity, which is their agentic coding platform. I have it downloaded right here, and I got it all set up so the viewers watching will be able to see this.
This is essentially like the equivalent of a vibe coding platform like Lovable or something like that, right? But it's all within Google.
Yeah, and this is an app that you download to your computer, so it's not something you run through your browser, although the models do run through the browser. But you can see if this is their agent mode window right now, which is like the custom thing that they've built. And if you hit open editor, you can see if you're familiar at all with VS Code, it is just VS Code because that's open source.
Yep.
So underneath it is a very familiar interface of Visual Studio Code. But the important part here is the agent manager. Now, there's a bunch of different setup steps. We'll talk about that when we actually do the breakdown. But for this demo, I have set it into turbo agent only mode where it's not going to ask us for review. It's just going to go off of what I tell it to do and basically come back when it has finished. And so what I thought we could do was ask it to make us a website for the FAIK Files.
Okay.
So I was thinking something like create a website using Eleventy, which is a static site generator that uses JavaScript that I'm familiar with, I've been working with lately. For the podcast, the FAIK Files, part of the N2K network. You can find all the information about it online. What do we want for our website, Perry? What else should I put in here?
We should tell it to do bios for us. So mention our names and say that it needs something highlighting the hosts.
Okay, make sure there are bios for Perry and Mason.
Do we want to have an embedded mini player?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Embedded mini player for the podcast RSS feed.
Display and highlight show art,
carousel, and any other features you think of that would make the website really, really cool. Let's go ahead and be vague because this new model is much better at kind of gauging your intent from vague instruction.
Okay.
Any other features you think that make the website really, really cool? Make sure it is easy for us to update with new content and that it is responsive across devices. Think like a senior developer. I've habitually been putting that in my prompts to see if it helps at all. And then I think we'll fire this off, and then we'll talk more about
like when you say senior developer, you mean like in rank, not in age, not like somebody that started with COBOL.
Yeah. Think like an old guy. Think like a very, very old programmer who I'm going to add who is intimately familiar with Eleventy. just so that maybe that'll help point it towards more of that. But I think I have mixed expectations here. I don't really know what's going to happen with this because it's only been out for a couple days. I think this dropped literally 2 days ago. I've had a little experience using Gemini 3 Pro in the chat interface, and I've been doing some coding tasks with it, and I've been really impressed, but I have not tried this yet. So we'll fire it off.
I haven't either.
We'll send it into the background after. Let's just see what it starts to do here. It looks like everything is sort of spinning up. And you know what? I'm not even going to look. Let's just let it. There we go. It has started. It's going. It's thinking, and it's going to work. And because I set it to turbo mode, it's not going to ask us any questions. Okay. We'll check back up on that at the end. Yeah, me too. Who knows what it's going to be like? So
you may crash the internet.
Or I might delete stuff off my computer. Who knows? That's kind of the risk, too, with these agentic systems.
I don't know, over the past few weeks, we've had like an AWS outage. We've had a Cloudflare outage. You might cause some kind of weird Google back-end issue that affects the rest of the world.
Yeah, somehow it's going to end up reconfiguring DNS settings on some like internet backbone. Who knows?
It's always DNS.
It's always DNS. There's a YouTuber, Jeff Geerling, who is a broadcast engineer who has he sells shirts that just say it was DNS, and I really want one. So Gemini 3, it dropped on the 18th of November, so 2 days before time of recording, which is the 20th, and 3 days before you'll hear it. And there's a bunch of information about it. There's like a whole product collection page that you can go check out. We'll link it in the show notes.
You got to read that title line. A new era of intelligence with Gemini 3.
Gemini 3 is our most intelligent model that helps you bring any idea to life. Yeah, this is littered with that kind of language, including like there's something here where is the line? It's talking about like this is the next step towards AGI and all of this sort of thing. So it is a bit self-aggrandizing. However, what they have here is pretty remarkable.
Right, right. Well, and we should say we were mentioning right before we hit record that like about a year ago, even 6-7 months ago, I think we were dunking on Gemini quite a bit because it just wasn't where it should have been for being a Google product. But we had always said this should be way better because it's Google. And we think that it will at some point leapfrog. And by all estimations and all the other folks that have looked at this seems to be the real leapfrog moment where everybody's looking at it and saying, all right, this is actually the best thing on the market right now. And it shows that progress for these kinds of systems is not actually slowing down. We've not hit a wall.
Yeah, we have not yet hit a wall in the scaling race and whatnot. And yeah, I think we have said from the beginning, Google has the infrastructure, they have the data, they have the information, they have the user base. So it's only a matter of time. And this is a huge step towards that. We'll get deeper into the benchmarks in a moment. This overview here is kind of just a lot of text and bloviating about how cool it is, but I want to get into let me make one more numbers.
Remark then while you're getting to that part, because we talked about not hitting a wall. The other thing is everybody is concerned about power consumption, rightly so. However, there's an interesting thing that came out of OpenAI where Sam Altman said, let me get the actual quote, GPT-5.1 thinking high is about 300 times cheaper than per task than O3 preview.
Which, really?
Yeah. And so that is a year later, their highest model is now 300 times cheaper to run than the highest model a year ago.
Wow.
And that's actually really encouraging because 5.1 is actually faster too. So we're moving in the right direction with some of the power stuff. At the same time, though, everybody's using these more and more. So the demand is still growing.
Yeah, and we need those efficiency gains because, again, the power consumption and water consumption becomes a critical problem when you get to these massive deployments and especially the training cycles. Honestly, that is why I have been more... When I use a cloud-based AI, I lean towards Gemini because they're the only one that's been pretty transparent, or even remotely transparent about their like water and power use. I still haven't seen any like numbers from OpenAI about those specific, like their power consumption during training and inference and water use. Yeah. So I pulled up the page for Google Gemini Pro here because it's got some benchmarks for us to look at. And they say here, our most intelligent model yet sets a new bar for AI model performance, and that definitely seems to be true. On humanity's last exam, Gemini 3 Pro got 37.5%, whereas the previous leader had been GPT-5.1, 26.5% there. Also on Terminal Bench 2, it got 54.2% compared to GPT 5.1 at 47.6%. 72% on Simple QA Verified versus Gemini 2.5, the previous iteration, at 54.5%. The long context performance on the MRCR V2, I don't really know anything about that benchmark, but compared to the other ones, like we're looking at Gemini 2.5, Claude Sonnet 4.5, and GPT 5.1, and the new Gemini 3 got 77%, whereas the previous highest number was 61.6 from GPT 5.1, and Claude had 47.1. This thing is spicy. Multimodal input, text-only output. It has 1 million input tokens, 64,000 output tokens. I do feel like I'm just shouting numbers, you know? And so I want to talk about
Yeah. So it's one thing to see the benchmarks. It's another thing for people to like actually use it and say, my vibe feeling about it feels like it's better. And it seems like we're getting that too. Now, I'll be honest. I've not opened up Gemini since Gemini 3 dropped, so I don't really have just a feeling about it yet because I've been traveling and focused on other things. Mm-hmm. But from what I'm hearing from a lot of the folks that I follow, like they feel a difference, a subjective difference.
There absolutely is. I felt it in the brief time I've been using it. And I looked up, I like to go to Reddit to see what people are saying because, you know, Reddit's full of some of the meanest and bluntest people you'll find on the internet. And pretty universally, I saw people saying it was really impressive and a step up. People saying that it solved problems that they couldn't get Gemini to solve before in other models. So yeah, the reception has been pretty good.
The other thing that I've heard is really good with this one is things like spatial reasoning and being able to look at and understand what's on a computer screen.
Yes, that is the other thing with this with the Antigravity platform we're running in the background. It can launch a dev server and like interact and run tests on your website or whatever it is you're having it code.
Yeah.
So it's really good at the screen space stuff. It's also got really, really good visual analysis. I saw people saying this is the first model that could read their handwriting, which is fun. So basically like incremental improvements in all arenas and pretty tangible incremental improvements. Here's a feature that I want to highlight. I want to balance the difference between yelling numbers and like feelings. And this is a very like tangible feature that I think is very cool. And it's something I've only seen Gemini doing. And they had been doing this a little bit before, but they're really leaning into it now, which is generative UI, where I don't know how much you poke around with Gemini, but if
I had heard about this. Yeah.
Before I had it, I asked it to make me a quiz about skeletons or like a quiz about bones. It was for a silly Halloween thing. And it presented me this like interactive multiple choice quiz with all of these things. And I thought, oh, that's neat. It like made a little layout and UI. And they've really leaned into that now where different prompts will elicit the model to essentially immediately vibe code you a little web app to teach you or to help you. So the examples they give are like, if you ask about fractals, it could make you like this cool artistic fractal interaction thing where you can like click through and learn, or you can have a training camp for math. And so rather than like vibe coding your own sort of website, it will vibe code its own thing to communicate with you in the chat platform. Yeah. And that's really engaging and very cool. As long as the it gets the facts right and whatever it is you're doing is not full of hallucinations and whatnot.
This is similar to like the direction that Google's Notebook LM is going to. So remember, it started with like these custom audio overviews that were podcast-like, and now they've evolved that where we'll do a custom video overview as well, where it adds like background images and charts and I mean, it's very stylized. It gets old a little bit quickly for me, but still, it's leaning into the fact that because when you use Notebook LM specifically, you're source grounding it really well, and so it can pull facts, figures, and things like that fairly accurately and represent those in relation to one another and kind of pull out the narrative. So it's leaning into that, but this one seems like it's taken that at internet scale, which is really cool. And the examples that I've seen, like the one that you got on the screen with the Van Gogh stuff, is really cool as well. You know where this is going, though. This is going to application and commerce, where you'll be able to go to a store and it will know enough about you that it will present you a custom, just for Mason, this is your storefront. and what kind of questions, what kind of things would you like to see? And let me surface those and custom build text that will appeal to you based on the nuance of language that it understands about your tastes and needs and preferences.
Oh, and get ready for a wave of that on top of just like print on demand sites where it generates pictures to print on coffee mugs and crap for you and whatnot. Yeah. So like the thing is, I guess and this is just a recurring theme in this show, is that like a very cool technology, it's immediately going to be used for the most annoying BS on the planet. But at its core, it's very, very neat. Like this, I particularly like the like learning interface. And I know that's a problem when it comes to accuracy in certain things. The knowledge that this seems to have and like the reduction in hallucinations is pretty remarkable too. I've got a blog post from Ethan Mollick that I'll touch on, but I really encourage you to check out where he talks about this. But a last note on the generative UI experiences, like the fact it can make interactive little things for you as a teaching tool, that gets me really excited because primarily what I end up using these things for is learning stuff. I use it for helping me with code, but I try and do it in a way that helps teach me what the code is doing and like how to do things better and new patterns, or like to double check stuff about electrical engineering or whatever kind of projects I'm working on. And also the potential for making like visual demonstrations because I'm working on the YouTube channel Wicked Interesting and I need to do a lot of data visualization at different times in different ways. And so something like this that could make that easier than me going into Blender and manually making every single thing. That's pretty cool. I don't know that I will do that necessarily, but the potential that is on display here is very interesting to me.
And I do think that some like large companies, like I can imagine IBM or Dell, something that has all these different business divisions and all these different products. You want to have a customer experience on your website where somebody can just go in and ask a question and toggle a few preferences. And then it surfaces in the coolest way possible the information that they're asking for, like directly asking and answering their questions based on the data that you have available and the way that they ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, I really think, and it seems very obvious to me that the future is these systems we have now are an amazing interface layer between a base of knowledge, data, and information that is maybe structured for a computer or a bit of a mess and a human user because they're a great translation layer there. And then to visualize it that way. It's so cool. Before we check on our website progress, I do want to just pull up this blog post from Ethan Mollick because I feel like it helps put things in perspective. Because I struggle with getting too hyped or too cynical in sort of oscillating ways where like I get very excited about something and then become more and more cynical as I see it used for more and more crappy stuff. And so I think that this post helped put that in perspective. We're not going to read the whole thing, but we'll link to it. This is from Ethan Mollick. If you don't know who that is, I'd be very surprised if you're listening to this show.
Right.
So he says, I've been testing Google's new Gemini 3 model. It is very good, but rather than give you benchmark numbers, I'm going to show you how far AI has come in 3 years by asking the AI to demonstrate it. He shared a tweet with Google Gemini that he made where he said, I posted about how image generating AI has gotten exponentially better in the last month. Well, a new text model was released for GPT-3 today. AI can now write rhyming poems and acrostics and limericks and explain how a candy-powered FTL drive can help me escape from otters. So that was back in 2022 when everyone was like, oh, silly. It's like those memes about writing an Applebee's commercial by training an AI on every Applebee's commercial, yada, yada. It was very nascent. So he sent that tweet to Gemini and said, show me how far AI has come since this post by doing stuff. And Gemini said, I can definitely show you the difference. The tweet you shared is right on the cusp of the modern AI boom. To demonstrate how far we've come, I'm not just going to write about it. I've built you a fully interactive, playable, candy-powered FTL Starship simulator. In 2022, AI could describe the engine. In 2025, AI can code the engine, design the interface, and let you pilot the ship yourself. And Ethan goes on to say, indeed, it built me a tiny game where I had to use the power of candy to escape otters, featuring small poems and an ongoing set of amusing updates. Which, like, it really does. Yeah, right? It's been 3 years. And, like, the underlying technology, for all of the societal ills atop it, the underlying technology is incredible. And I just feel like that helps really illustrate it. And he talks about anti-gravity, which we're going to check back in with in a moment. He did this experiment, though, that I want to highlight. where he gave Gemini 3 access to a directory of old files he used for research into crowdfunding a decade ago. It was a mishmash of files labeled things like project_final_seriously_this time, and data in random formats and whatnot. He told Gemini, figure out the data and the structure of the initial cleaning, get it ready to do a new analysis and find new things. And he says it did. And then he gave it an assignment to create a research paper, an original research paper using this data. And he said, specifically, with no further hints, I wrote, great, now I want you to write an original paper using this data. Do deep research on the field. Make the paper not just about crowdfunding, but about an important theoretical topic of interest in either entrepreneurship or business strategy. Conduct a sophisticated analysis. Write it up as if for a journal. And then the AI, after a couple vague commands, he says, like, build it out more, make it better. He got a 14-page paper, and then he reviewed it, and he says, so is this PhD level intelligence? In some ways, yeah. If you define a PhD level intelligence as doing the work of a competent grad student at a research university, but it also had some of the weaknesses of a grad student. The idea was good, as were many elements of the execution, but there were also problems. Some of its statistical methods needed more work. Some of its approaches were not optimal. Some of its theorizing went too far given the evidence, and so on. Again, we've moved past hallucinations and errors to more subtle, often human-like concerns. Now, obviously, this isn't universally true, but in this case, he said that it came up with like its own measure of figuring out how unique a crowdfunding idea was using natural language processing to compare its description mathematically to other descriptions and like these other kind of cool, novel angles. And most of it held some water. It was like far more impressive than just write me a limerick. And it was this very last line that made me want to share this, which was 3 years ago, we were impressed that a machine could write a poem about otters. Less than 1,000 days later, I'm debating statistical methodology with an agent that built its own research environment. The era of chatbot is turning into the era of the digital coworker. To be very clear, Gemini 3 isn't perfect and it still needs a manager who can guide and check it, but it suggests that human in the loop is evolving from human who fixes AI mistakes to human who directs AI work. And that may be the biggest change since the release of ChatGPT. Yeah. I don't agree wholly with that. I still think that like it should be a much more cooperative thing than just guiding the AI's work. But I see what he's pointing at, and I think I agree with just the scope of how impressive these changes have been. I mean,
it is crazy. The other thing is like no matter how good it gets, we're still frustrated with it. Like it had come out with something that would have taken us 2 or 3 days to pull together and to think through and brainstorm and like write something. We'll look at it and go, God, you're so stupid. Like, why'd you say this or think this in this paragraph?
How did you mess this up based on my vague instructions that I gave you? And well, I was holding a coffee in the other hand. Yeah,
it is really funny how we're just like always gonna, and some of that's like the brilliance that we have within our own minds and like finding connections and surfacing past contexts that we've had where we can naturally find those weak spots. But at the same time, I think we move really, really fast to like discount all of the other stuff that it's done. And we just hone in on the like, oh God, that's wrong.
And I think it's partially because of the uncomfortability. Like we were so keen to to say that AI was very human-like until it became pretty close to human-like. And we got more and more reticent, started moving the goalposts further and further as to what we consider intelligence. And I think that's sociologically interesting.
The other thing is, I don't know that like when we grew up with sci-fi shows like Star Trek and people would just like go, hey, computer, do this for me. Or in the Jetsons where they've got the little automated robot that takes care of their house. We never really thought in those situations about the intelligence and the social and ethical issues that came along with that. Because they were just interacting with a machine. We kind of bought into the world. And now we're having to go, oh, wait, this thing could get it right. This could get wrong. There could be an emerging intelligence in it that we don't understand that approaches some kind of consciousness. What do we do with that? Or if it's robots, are we just kind of building things that at some point could be kind of sentient and we're enslaving them? You know, what are all those things? And I'm not saying that we're at that point or anything like that, or even that it's going to be possible, but those are the ethical issues that we have to grapple with. And in those situations with those sci-fi shows, we never saw that grappling with. We just saw the cold interaction of computer, make me a cup of coffee. Or computer, help me brainstorm through this.
Yeah, and I think grappling with that nuance is something that we weren't really ready for, particularly with the socioeconomic place we were in when this technology kind of came out.
Yeah.
So I've checked back up on our website, and I realized it was sitting waiting for me to approve the overall action plan and let it run some terminal commands. So we'll let that cook in the background, and I think at the end of this episode, we can take a look at what it has cooked up.
Cool.
Because right now, it's just here. I'll give you a quick glance at what's been going on here, since this is the segment about it, and we'll clip this out for YouTube. But you should watch segment 4 if you want to see the result. So it started doing research. It created this implementation plan over on the side with, just various proposed structures and things. I didn't read a single lick of this. I'm just clicking OK, accept. I guess I'll click accept, even though that's been there for a while. Let's see if that's okay. I wish I could get it to auto accept, but what I am doing is inadvisable. I will say that.
Another agent that just continually types in, go for it.
Yeah, just like that looks for a blue button and clicks it no matter what.
Yep.
So we'll let that cook in the background. Agent terminated due to error. Ooh. All right. Well, I'll see what's up with that. We'll move on to a break, and then we're going to jump into our next segment. What you got coming up in our next segment, Perry?
Let me look at the notes and see. Paper from MIT on AI edited images and videos that can change our memories.
That's right. Oh boy. Okay. Buckle up. That's on the way.
So I want to talk real quick about something because I think we've expected this, and it's interesting to see it in actual confirmed research. So we know that as humans, we have very fallible memories. In fact, even though every court case wants like an eyewitness for something, we've seen over and over and over again that eyewitness testimony is sometimes the least reliable testimony because our memories are fallible. And sometimes the more we try to recall the same thing, the more we subtly change it within ourselves. And we did see, even like in the satanic panic of the 1980s and early 90s, all the false memory stuff that was being done because somebody would go in for counseling and then they would put them in a hypnotic or semi-hypnotic state and then subtly suggest things that may have happened to them. I think all with goodwill and good intent and maybe some sensationalism for sure, but trying to help people get to the problem or the root issue of some things. And out of this came many, many false memories and accountings of like ritual abuse and everything else. And then, of course, that caused a panic. And so people would be hearing about it and somebody else would go, you know what, I've never felt right about my life. Let me go in and get hypnotized. And then somebody would be going, tell me if you remember being in a circle and people chanting around you. And and of course, if you're suggesting things like that, then they can start to become part of your thing because it's the conundrum of telling somebody, don't think of the big pink elephant. And in order to not think of the big pink elephant, you have to conjure up a big pink elephant in your mind and kind of cross it out. So,
and isn't like the whole cornerstone of like those sorts of hypnotic things, the idea of suggestibility and like being open to suggestion and whatnot, like putting yourself in a state where you're like, well, maybe I do. And then you start imagining it and you're like, maybe this is a buried memory or whatever. Yeah. Basically gaslighting yourself.
And imagination and memory are like very, very mixed, right? Because you can remember the things that you've imagined.
Yeah.
Like if you were daydreaming the other day and trying to postulate something, the beauty of memory is that as you're brainstorming and postulating, you can go back and remember that later and build on it.
Not to sound like someone in a stoner movie, but you just blew my mind, man. You can remember the things you imagine. I never thought of it that way. That's actually like, yeah, those two processes are very interleaved.
And then so like if I was talking to you and say, Mason, imagine your childhood. You remember a time that you were like on a swing set and you were there and your parents were near you. Do you remember that time when you were on the swing set and your parents were near you and everybody was playing and having a good time? And then like you looked around and nobody was there all of a sudden? Like you don't remember where your parents were, and like you were a little bit scared, right?
I could gaslight myself into that because honestly, I frequently will have people tell me things like, hey, remember when you did this thing? And I will have no recollection. And I'll just have to, I think that's a pretty common experience. And so as you were saying that, I was like, maybe I can actually remember that, even in this moment. Yeah.
Because it sounds like just plausible enough, right? Because you do have memories of yourself probably like in some kind of playground or on a swing set. And you have memories of yourself with parents or parental figures in that. And you have memories of times where like you've looked around and people that you've wanted to be, like your parents or somebody else, like they stepped aside and you don't remember where they were and you're like a little bit freaked out, and you can smash all those things together really easily.
Absolutely.
So that's what's going on essentially with digital memory recall. But what I mean by that is all of us have our cell phones. We're taking pictures of stuff all the time, or we're building, taking videos. And increasingly on our cell phones and on any device that we have like these AI tools now. I think Google was the first to really add the touch and remove the annoying thing type of function within your photo. Which at the time, years ago, I was like, that's really cool, but that's also really dangerous because let's say you have this memory or you have this photo of you and your family on the beach, and there was another person in there, or there was like a seagull or something that was just in the wrong place. You like zap that thing out. Well, now every time you look at that, you're reinforcing the memory that's not actually true.
A modified memory, yeah.
Yeah. Or you're in an alley and there's a distracting person, or there's a distracting bit of graffiti, and you just tap that and say, get rid of that, get rid of that. And then again and again, you're like, in this scene, man, we were at the beach and it was just us and it was perfect. And then 10 years later, that's what you remember. Or in this alley, it was, pristine and I don't know what kind of memory you're going to build in an alley, but there wasn't the person over there that had just peed by the dumpster,
right?
Type of thing. It was, is clean. And that is becoming like the norm. And so this study came out from MIT. Let me go ahead and share the tab for that.
And that's exists on a spectrum from banal to pretty important, right? And you may not always know what is.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just all about not seeing the person that's peeing in the corner. It's getting rid of the friend that you broke up with in your childhood, so that they're not in this image anymore of you with your family that you do still get along with. It's way more devious than that, because if I can start to manipulate videos or images and then show those to you more and more times, then I can actually create a false reality for you. So the MIT study, essentially what they did is they would show somebody an image, and then they would give them a little bit of time, so a time delay, and then they would ask them about the image. So image, time delay, and then recall. And this is like when I was doing a lot of mentalism and fake psychic work, one of the things that you would always do at the end of a trick, if you'd manipulated something up front, is you would try to manipulate their memory by the end of it by saying, hey, remember we did this. And you might put some steps out of order in the way that you recalled it. Like if I asked you a number and you said 42, then I'm going to actually write that number in real time in a secret way without you being able to see it. So I might pull out an envelope and I might be kind of writing through that envelope. I'm not going to tell you how that's done, but writing through that envelope after you said 42, then I give that to you. Or if I've got multiple predictions in my pockets, like if I had set out 5 different things and had you pick one, and then on my person, I've got basically envelopes in different pockets. Like my breast pocket would say one, front pant pocket would say another one, the other front pant pocket would say the other one, back pockets would be them. So you've got distribution of 5 different predictions across your body, but you say, I've chosen the AirPods is the thing that I wanted to pick, and I've got that written down in my front breast pocket. So I pick that out and say, oh, that's interesting. I predicted this before the thing. But then we go through like 5 minutes later after we've done some other stuff, and I'll say, you remember I was holding that prediction and you said AirPods, and I gave that to you. So I can reframe that memory after a little bit of time delay, and it works really, really well. People give you the memory benefit of the doubt, and when everybody goes out of the theater, that's how they remember it. It's like, oh man, he was holding this envelope the entire time, had all these objects, had me just kind of grab one, whether he was psychic or whether he was influencing me, I don't know, but he knew that I was going to pick the AirPods. And for me, I just had every option covered.
Right.
And I was, going to go into a natural place and grab that out. So it felt still realistic for you on the front end.
Because it's so easy to gaslight you about the things you don't notice, right? Like that person probably didn't pay that much attention to the fact you grabbed it from your pocket, right? Particularly if all of those are in normal pockets. It's not like you're pulling it out of your shoe or something. It's not memorable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and you can even say, with some of the ones that I've done, it's like, because I'll usually like have the date or something like that written on it, something that makes it feel like really just part of the actual event. And so after they call out the thing they want, I'll may even go, oh, I meant to be holding this. I meant to have this out the entire time. Sorry about that. So at that point, I'm still kind of like preconditioning the fact that the way that it normally goes is that I'm holding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All of that subtle memory modification.
Yeah. Yep. So our tools are now starting to do that for us. Is we're starting to see, and this is the crux of the MIT study, is that you have that original image, you give them a delay, and then you ask them about it. And sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I laughed because earlier I almost said, what if you removed the evidence of a crime in your background?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know, but you took the one picture of the guy who did the crime. And they show that in this study that we're looking at on screen. And so I just laughed. Because I was like,
exactly. Exactly.
That's a bit more far-fetched.
It is. But if you're building disinformation or if you're building cover over something, then and you only have like one eyewitness or a couple, and then you're building subtly changing evidence, maybe you can inject enough within their memory that there's reasonable doubt as they're hooked up to like lie detector tests and stuff like that. So they were given these original images, then given a time delay to filter, and then they come back and ask about recall. And they had about 200 participants, this control study. And then when they went to the AI edited images, what they found is a 2.05x more false memories than seeing the original unedited images. So really? They were recalling the things incorrectly more, or recalling the change more. And so they went across these like 4 different stages. One was unedited images. That's their control study. Then they went to AI edited images, and that's where you got that 2.05 more false memories implanted. And then they went to AI generated videos of unedited images. So if you generate an image of these people interacting now based on a real image, how does somebody respond? And do they remember those interactions and maybe implant a false belief that way? And then the last one, as you can imagine, is an AI-generated video of an AI-generated image. And that actually had the strongest effect.
Really?
It led people to remember added and removed details, even if those weren't present in the original photo. So you take an original photo, you insert Sam Altman holding somebody hostage, then you animate that into something, create a situation, and then now within that person's memory, they can plausibly recall that thing, whatever the thing is.
So they showed them each a set of 24 images, then made them play Pac-Man for 2 minutes. So they had 2 minutes to look at 24 images, 2 minutes to play Pac-Man, and then they were shown either the AI-generated videos, AI-edited images, the unchanged images, and AI-generated videos, and quizzed on if they remembered them being the same or different.
Yeah.
Interesting. That is trippy.
Yeah. Right. I would encourage folks to go look at the study. Like I said, I need to read it a couple more times and make sure that I don't mischaracterize anything. But it is something that we need to know about.
And that's a really good, the one that's on screen right now is what the original image is like a wedding scene or something. There's a guy in a tux and a lady in a dress. The guy's like looking down and the lady's kind of looking into the middle distance. And then the edited image, they're both smiling and looking at the camera. And so it was like subtle changes like that they were making using AI.
Right. Well, and those are the kinds of things that we were doing with Photoshop for a long time, right? Is like, oh, I've got and this is one we did with our own family. We were taking family photos 12 years ago, and it was just Photoshop, and it was increasingly difficult to get everybody to have the right expression at the right time when you have little kids. And so I had to take a picture of my son from one photo and then superimpose him where he would have been in the other photo. And I think if you were to ask our kids right now if that was the actual time that they had, they would probably go, yeah, that seems right.
That's how I remember. Yeah.
Me and my wife know that I spent 2 hours doing that. But at the same time, if I try to recall that memory, that's kind of the picture that sticks in my head.
Well, and also the thing is too, you spent 2 hours doing it. And if you just do it in one click with AI without thinking, you're even less, you've less time to catalog that a change was made. It's a much more passive change. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think all this will fit into the last segment as well, because we're going to still get into like the disinformational use of AI generated images and plausibility.
Ooh, fun. And before we get into that, we're going to take a little dive into something that's just kind of a weird curiosity that I want to show you. I think you'll find this very interesting, Perry. And if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you'll get to see this because this is a pretty visual thing. Nice. But I'll do my best to describe it. So stick around. This one's going to be weird. So this was sent in by Discord member and future paperclip Bullethead. Thank you, Bullethead, for the great submissions in our Discord server. You can join it at fake.to/Discord. Also a link in the description and the show notes. This is a pretty neat little thing, Barry. It's called MMADA Parallel Multimodal Large Diffusion Language Models for Thinking-Aware Editing and Generation. And we're going to take that nasty mouthfeel and spit it out, and we'll talk about what it actually is. What you can see on screen is a good demo of what it is. It is generating an image and text in parallel. But unlike an LLM, if you remember several episodes back, we did that thing about diffusion language models. Do you remember, Perry, where instead of sequential tokens, it's like noise tokens, and then the text is getting edited non-sequentially, like stuff gets inserted in the middle, in the beginning. And what this is doing is using that text generation through diffusion while it's generating an image through diffusion, and it is cross-pollinating those sort of tokens together to improve the image generation process to better understand what the user's intent was.
That is trippy.
It's really cool. Now, this is very nascent. I think large diffusion language models, I might be getting, you know what I mean? I might be getting like the order of those words wrong. I think those are still kind of in their baby state because there's not many big providers building them. So this is not like a super technically impressive thing, but it is a fascinating one. I'm going to jump to the research paper for a moment because I've highlighted a few things that help break down what's going on. I'm going to start with their introduction. Don't worry, I'm not going to read this entire block of text, but this sets this up very well. Recent advances in multimodal generative models have achieved remarkable progress in instruction-based image generation and editing. We're all familiar with that. You ask ChatGPT or Gemini to make something. Given diverse textual prompts, these models can produce visually coherent and semantically aligned results across a wide range of tasks. However, these models often struggle with complex instructions that require reasoning over world knowledge, frequently leading to incorrect editing and generation. I mean, we've all probably experienced that too. You're like, make this tree blow in the wind, and it's just the tree again. I tried to get Google Gemini to make me a picture of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile on fire flying over an overpass, and it just could not get it right. To mitigate this problem, a lot of models introduce reasoning steps before the visual generation. So it'll iterate over your prompt and try and come up with a better prompt behind the scenes to feed to the image generation. But they point out that there is a error propagation that can happen if it doesn't fully understand your prompt and it's going front to back as it generates the prompt it'll feed to the image thing. Anything gets wrong just gets propagated, fed to the image thing. So there's no sort of talking back and forth. And they found that on certain benchmarks, the inclusion of reasoning can in fact reduce the semantic fidelity of the generated images. They have some examples here where they show that sequential generation can suffer from vague or incorrect reasoning, whereas parallel generation helps align text and images at each denoising step, which helps reduce hallucinations and errors. Their whole thing here is, what if multimodal models could generate text and images in parallel? We prompt a powerful vision language model with data triplets. So input image, edit instruction, output image, sourced from widely adopted image editing and generation data sets. The vision language model is tasked to generate a reasoning trace that explains the edit process. So on one side, it's asked to explain what it's editing and why. And on the other side, it's generating the image. And each token is getting, fed back in real time. So as the image is edited, the reasoning changes. As the reasoning changes, the image editing changes to try and get it closer and closer to what the user's intent was, in a way that's very cool to watch happen too. And they found that during the parallel denoising process, the image region corresponding to a specific semantic concept is often refined simultaneously with its textual counterpart. So they've gotten this cross-pollination working. This paper is pretty fascinating and pretty well written. I would definitely encourage you to check it out if you're of the nerdy persuasion, but we're just going to try it. I have, I played with it a little bit before the show and I actually ran out of my free Hugging Face GPU credits. So I had to I made a second account, Don't Tell Hugging Face, so that we could do this. I'm giving it the input image of our podcast show art. So the FAIK Files logo. And I'm giving it the instruction, this is the logo for a podcast, the FAIK Files. It is a stylized folder with bold outlines and line work. The background is a blue circuit board with a big fingerprint on the top left. The N2K network logo is in white in the bottom right corner. We need to keep every aspect of this image the same, except we must change the text to read the FARTS. Keep everything else as close to the original as possible, except the new text. And so I'll hit generate, and we'll get to watch in real time. As it spins up, it'll take a second here, and then it'll start generating the image on the right and the textual reasoning on the left. And you can see these placeholder noise tokens. So the reasoning starts out.
It moved to FART files really fast.
It got the FART files, and I bet you it's going to get stuck with that. It did replicate the N2K in the bottom corner, which is cool.
Nice.
It's paying attention to the semantic content of the prompt. So
at one point, it put N2K at the very top of our FAIK Files logo instead of it looked like, but it's trying to stay right now.
It's choking a little bit on it, but it's coming together pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
It has understood the semantic concepts pretty well. It's really fun to see it work. But so as an example, the reasoning trace says, to transform the question image into the answer image, I need to focus on the following changes. And then it was listing out text change, color scheme, background. And so as it was reasoning through that, it was adjusting those various things in the image, and they were talking back and forth. And you could kind of see it in real time, like as the bits that it was reasoning about were being talked about, those things were being changed on the image.
Yeah.
The result is not very impressive because, again, this is like a very nascent thing. It says the FART files. The top of the A has some nonsense over it. It got the thumbprint. It got the circuit board. It got the N2K logo. Everything that I specifically semantically specified is right. It didn't copy the visual style all that well.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I wonder what would happen if we threw that same prompt and image into ChatGPT and asked it, or Google's Nano Banana.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go to gemini.google.com, and then we'll go ahead and paste in the prompt. I'll paste in the image as well, and then let's go ahead and say go, and let's see how well it handles that. Because this is just a total different pipeline, right? Because when we're talking about the other thing, it was that parallel generation. This is serial generation, auto-regressive generation through Google Gemini 3.
So that first one is creating an entirely new image. This one there's a chance it's going to just do like in painting is what it's called, where it just goes in and like selectively removes and replaces stuff. Oh,
and the result is infinitely better. I will say
it got it
literally perfect. So it's not like a thing that is going to be replacing the way that we're doing image generation right now. But as far as like an alternate pipeline that I think maybe if more people are contributing to and like developing upon, we could see other applications for it.
I mean, we've seen these things increase in goodness exponentially over short amounts of time. So I can imagine it's going to be great. Just for the sake of, I guess for the heck of it, open up ChatGPT and see if you can do the same thing there.
ChatGPT. Okay. I've pasted in the picture and the prompt.
ChatGPT is like infuriatingly slow in how it does its image generation. So we may be here for a minute.
I will say that I was impressed by how fast Nano Banana cranked that last one out too. That was super fast. Nano Banana has been somewhat impressive. I did not expect to be impressed by it because again, Gemini had been lacking behind for so long. But
Nano Banana kind of blew everybody out of the water. Like, I mean, to the point where it's now integrated into Photoshop.
Because, oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought I thought Adobe had their own models that they were building for that.
They've got their Firefly models, but they're expanding out. So when they realize that somebody does something as good or better than them, they're importing, they're just kind of bringing that in.
That makes sense. And I mean, Microsoft, same kind of thing, right? With them opening up to other models. We experienced an error when generating images. Sometimes I think that happens and then you refresh and it's fine. Let's try again. Take two. I
think Gemini struggles less with server load as well.
Yeah. Well, ChatGPT's got the Kleenex effect for it now. Right now everyone calls AI ChatGPT in like casual conversation.
We would call that the Xerox effect.
The Xerox effect.
Yeah.
I haven't heard Xerox in a long time.
Right. Well, that would be like the, make a copy of something. Mm-hmm. I guess it could just be the Coke effect too. I was going to say the Hellman's effect, but nobody calls mayo Hellman's. Duke's mayo is better anyway. If you live in a place that has Duke's mayonnaise, oh my God, it's the best. Hey, there it is. Hey.
That's so, okay. So why don't we go ahead? I will copy this. We'll go back to Gemini, open image in new tab, and then I'll open the other image in the new tab. So this is the difference between Gemini and ChatGPT's attempt to change our logo into the FARTS one. This one with the correct lightness in the AR, like there is in the AI of FAIK, is from Gemini. And the one that doesn't have the contrast exactly as I envisioned it is ChatGPT.
Right. Okay. The shapes are more pleasing in the ChatGPT one. The lighting is more pleasing in the Gemini one. It did definitely do in-painting, though. Look at how none of the background changes whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's some quality difference, I think resolution difference perhaps, but it looks like it's very in-painted. And for the record, this logo for the show is not AI generated. I drew this by hand, painstakingly. Not the farts, but the original one. So I'm very familiar with every inch of this thing, and it got most of it pretty darn right, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So anyway, and then again, to compare that to the subject of this segment, which is this is the one from that parallel generation that we did.
It's cute. So. It looks like almost a Star Wars, like a Lego Star Wars type of thing.
I will say this is kind of comparable to the results you get when you use like a small local model to try and do image generation and editing. And so I think if that's where this is now, maybe just a few more steps of refining and scaling and figuring out how to make it work. Maybe this will be better at processing semantic content, because their paper certainly seemed to point to noticing some increases, at least over this model that's called Bagel, GPT and GPT-4o also. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think give it a year.
Yeah, give it a year. But these diffusion language models are fascinating, and now seeing them work in parallel like this, I think is very cool.
Yeah.
That's all I got for that. Now it's back into the world of darkness, right, Perry? Don't you have something spooky for our last segment?
I don't know if it's spooky. It's just more news, disinformation stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's where we are with life. So
that's pretty spooky. We'll be right back.
Okay, now returning back to false memories, false narratives, and all things like that. So this does tie in with segment 2, where we talked about false memories and recall as one of the big results from AI-generated videos, of AI-generated images. And so I think it makes sense if we go over to something like
this BBC article, Russian bloggers push AI videos of fleeing Ukrainian troops. Again, every good deepfake or every good deception is based in some kind of plausibility and story. And that has to be something that, has a good story, is cognitively smooth in the way that it's plausible enough to be real. And so, people fleeing from a war zone would make sense. People being fed up with what's going on would make sense. And so here there was Russian Telegram bloggers on November 11th shared 2 AI-generated videos purporting to show Ukrainian soldiers, quote, fleeing. And they had claims that the East Ukrainian town that they were fleeing from was encircled by Russian forces. So one blogger the following day removed the video that he had shared, and another said that it was Ukrainians who had created the videos in order to drown out the Russian army's, quote, real successes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And then a third ridiculed the videos, saying that they were clearly AI generated. So BBC decided to step in and try to see what was going on. They found a ton of visual anomalies in the videos, including unilateral soldier movements, distorted objects, implausible details, such as a self-moving wheelchair, and a soldier carrying a medieval style axes, including other though in war times, when you talk about like some of the poverty and some of the desperation, I don't know how accessible medieval style axes are, but at the same time, you're kind of like grabbing everything that's available for some of these. So when we talk about when somebody goes, well, clearly there's visual distortion, I always dismiss that a little bit because of our compression artifacts and other things that we see in legit videos all the time.
A lot of videos where it's just a drone tracking something like that. A drone tracking shot where it's like encircling an object. A lot of videos that are real of that, people in like comments would be like, this is AI, just because that perspective is very common in AI things. So you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, you got to be really careful and like over calling out stuff as quote unquote obviously AI. On November 11th, it says that the video was posted to a Telegram channel. I did try to click on that. It went to something that wasn't fully it because I don't have Telegram on this machine and I didn't really feel like getting there. But let me just check this real quick too.
Oh yeah, that link. Maybe that link will get us there.
Okay, here we go.
Awesome. Okay. Without having to join any sketchy channels. Cool.
Yes. So we have the video. Let me go ahead and click it. We can give our own commentary on what we think.
Okay. So we get some people walking.
I say the physics of the men carrying the gurney looks a little bit off. Like, it feels too light.
As someone who recently dislocated their kneecap, that guy's not using crutches right. And he looks like he's supposed to have an injury, but he's just walking with the crutches wrong.
Yeah. The wheelchair... The wheelchair's moving on its own. Yeah, he's got his hands on the wheels of the wheelchair. It's moving on its own without the wheels actually revolving or him doing any pushing motions.
And also the mechanics of the wheelchair, it's missing some pieces from the base that connect it and things like that. I can see.
So I agree. I would look at it and say, this seems clearly AI generated.
Yeah, the movements are weird. The facial expressions are strange. Like some of these dudes are like smiling and stuff. Although that you could think like people. Yeah, there's a guy in the middle.
Like his smile looks unnatural for the situation. But maybe at the same time you're seeing somebody with a camera and you're being performative. So like if everything else was spot on and one guy was making a weird expression, I would find a reason to write that off.
It's the sum of these things. And also, I am astounded by the attempts very often to reverse victim and offender where like they got called out for posting this and then they're like, actually, it was the Ukrainians to make us look dumb. Like it's so...
Exactly. But I mean, what they're trying to do is just get fog of war, right? So confusion is everything in these. Now, the thing that I didn't like is some of the commentary in the way that the experts approach this. As experts in these fields try to bring clarity, one of the things that we have to do is we have to realize that a lot of people are they're guided by their their amygdala or their reflexive thought and emotion as they look at these kinds of stories. And humans are just going to be human. Most humans are not innately stupid in the way that they engage with stuff. They're innately emotional. And so one of the things that I didn't like about this article is this quote from a war correspondent. And he said, he ridiculed the video, saying that they were clearly AI generated. He said part of his job as a war correspondent is to explain to, here's quote, the idiots that take AI generated contents at face value that, quote, they are a flock of dumb sheep and sheeps need shepherds.
Yikes. Yeah, that's a terrible attitude, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't like that. I don't think that this is the BBC war correspondent. It doesn't sound like the kind of verbiage that the BBC would use for these kinds of things. But the fact that there are people that are calling themselves journalists that are calling their readers idiots and are saying that their readers are a flock of dumb sheep and that their job is to guide them and be the shepherd. I think that's the wrong way to do this.
Yeah, that person is burned out. And like the moment you start regarding the people for whom you're trying to provide a service as idiots or less than you need to like step back and reconsider your role. That's something I encountered when I was in IT management with people who struggled to deal with users, and the classic stereotype of the IT guy telling everyone they're stupid and whatnot. Like you gotta, you don't do that. You don't be like that.
So, you mentioned kind of like the Darvo effect on this. So Darvo is like where you dismiss, dismiss. Let me look that up.
Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender.
That's it. So that's actually what's going on with this, right? So when they had the videos, they get debunked, and then the Russians will say that, it was actually the Ukrainians that created these videos to quote unquote drown out on social media the Russian army's quote real successes in Ukraine.
That's a real stretch of a Darvo too. That's like a real stretch of one.
That you have two videos to drown out the Russian army's real successes.
And also, how would it even do that? There should be a Darvo Awards like there's a Darwin Awards.
Right, exactly. And then it says the goal is to drown out genuine footage in a sea of obviously fake content that is deliberately spread by the opponent in order to be easily refuted later.
Yeah, I saw two posts and I was really in a sea the other day for sure.
This does get to the whole liar's dividend thing, though, right? Is that what people are really going for is just the fact that truth is very ambiguous online right now. It's really, really difficult to for sure say what's real and what's not unless you have an obviously fake video. This one kind of moves into the obviously fake video, but I can't step into the mind space of somebody that's been living in a war-torn country for several years. Yeah. And whatever they're viewing this on.
Yeah. And I will say, like, to be a war correspondent is to deal with some of like the darkest things in humanity too. So like,
yeah. So let me kind of end this with one other. And so we move from Russia, Ukraine to Israel, Gaza. And this is from the Oversight Board, which I don't know a lot about these guys, how reputable they are. But they purport to be a check on Meta. So the company that owns Facebook and so on. Okay. And what they're looking to do in this specifically is to address AI-generated content in the Israel-Iran conflict. So, sorry, I said Israel-Gaza before. This is Israel-Iran. That originally came from this post that I saw from Andrew Smith, and we'll put this on the show notes as well. He's talking about the Oversight Board announcing a case where Meta left up AI-generated videos faking extensive damage to several buildings in Israel. So that's to stoke anger, right? Yeah. And continue aggression while a real armed conflict was raging. The content was shared by a page claiming to be a news organization, got over 700,000 views. So again, every deception fits into narrative. And if it seems plausible, in a combination of story and the thing that's being shown, the deceptive artifact, then it can get the emotional outrage or whatever the thing that you're wanting to have happen. It can actually lead to that happening. Mm-hmm. And so initially, Meta said that this content didn't violate any parts of its misinformation policy. And so
if I had a nickel,
it's fine to stand.
If I had a nickel for every questionable like every obviously questionable, terrible decision Meta has made loudly in public, I would be drowning in nickels. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. So then the oversight board brought this post specifically to their attention. So a lot of people were reporting it. And then the oversight board gets involved and brings it. And then Meta removed the page and the accounts behind it because of engagement abuse and inauthenticity. So it wasn't a misinformation policy that they leaned into. They're like, no, this is fine, but we'll pull it down for engagement abuse.
What does that even mean?
Yeah. So what the oversight board goes on to say is this points to the challenges in engagement-based social media companies when their users exploit a real crisis for clickbait, which is, I guess that's engagement abuse, right? Is they're trying to drive the click. So Gen AI's made that much easier.
That screams to me that they were just like, we got caught with our pants down. We can't turn around and say, actually, it is a misinformation, because Facebook is engagement abuse. Every post on the internet is engagement abuse. Gosh.
So then here is, I'm going to move, this is factcheck.afp.com that is hosting this one. And this has some examples of the videos, or sorry, the images.
Yeah.
And so you'll see just utter destruction.
Yep. AI generated smashed landmarks and cities and things.
Yep. Things that would be recognizable. And then you'll see like the AI generated version, which is just all dilapidated and crushed, versus the like satellite imagery of what would have been intact at the time. So that would feel really visceral if you're somebody familiar with the area and you weren't in a position to know better.
Yeah, I mean, if you're seeing images of your hometown destroyed, you're seeing images of the city you live in destroyed, or the city, probably not the one you live in, because then you would know it's not true, but you know, cities you're familiar with and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this would be the equivalent of like what we would have here in the US, where somebody is saying that, hey, this city is a war zone. And then you have people that are living there that are like, wait, I'm walking down those same streets you're talking about, and I'm not seeing any of this stuff.
It's reminiscent of the Portland stuff. Yeah. And there was AI disinformation around that. And then also the flooding that happened. Although in that
we
case,
see this all the time. Yeah. Right? It's exaggerated in some cases, right? So there may be, like in Portland and in LA, there was like a block or two where there was some protest, and sometimes those protests were very packed, but then people would make it, or they'd take bits of that out of context and they would say that that's the entirety of what's going on, when in fact it was very like self-contained intentionally to certain areas for very real reasons. But then also we see people like take an image from, and we saw this with Portland as well, an image from riots and conflict in 2020 that were more extreme than they were this round, and then attribute that to something in 2025.
I was going to say,
it can feel real at that point. That's not a deep fake.
There was also, I forget what incident it was, but there was one where someone used video game footage from like a modern video game and just crunched the resolution a bit and said this was real too. So like, it's just how easy it is now, you know?
Yeah, it's too easy, and it's too easy for it to be just plausible enough for somebody that's not like there on the ground to dismiss it. And again, if it fits a pre-existing narrative or pre-existing bias that you're likely to believe in, then you're not necessarily in a state to think as critically about it. And so that's not like that's not really a condemnation of the person that falls for it. It's just human reality.
I mean, I think a lot about not Maxim. I think a lot about the razor that you outlined in the book, FAIK, of like, if something sparks a big response in you emotionally, that's a cue to slow down and look for other collaborating or corroborating sources. So like that's really the only razor I can think of to help as a consumer of news and a scroller of the internet is like when you feel that reaction, stop and step back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so one of the things that I have put in a lot of my presentations is this thing that I call the FAIK framework, the FAIK framework. So freeze and feel. So as soon as you get that emotional reaction, actually slow down and then try to name the thing that you're feeling. Like, is that fear? Is it outrage? Is it
disgust?
Pressure? Is it urgency? Is it disgust? Is it hope? What is that? And then the A is analyze the narrative. And then like also look at the emotion again. Say what emotion or what emotional triggers may have been engineered into this thing intentionally. And then investigate the claim sources. And then you're able to know, confirm, and keep vigilant. So those types of ways of thinking about it, you have to say, is this falling into a story? And is this trying to invoke some kind of emotional response intentionally? And then you always have to ask the question, why does this thing exist? Why is it in my feed? How did it land in front of me? What story is it snapping into? What emotions is it trying to engage? And then ultimately, what does it want me to do or believe? And once you start to ask those questions critically, you're well on your way to being able to disambiguate reality from falsehood.
I think the trickiest part or the hardest part to put into action is to recognize when something is falling into your own biases that you have. Because it's like, it's really hard to challenge your own worldview, even, in something you have all these preconceived notions about. It is a challenging thing to do, but it is very effective.
Well, and the thing that I say every now and then too is that if it feels really, really easy to believe, it may have been engineered that way.
Yeah. That's a good way to put that.
One of the things that we do, like with furniture and stuff, is like you smooth it out. Certain bits of furniture you put on a lathe, and you get rid of every bit of friction so that it feels comfortable. And if something that you're seeing online that falls within a social or political narrative, if it feels really comfortable to believe, then you need to take a step back and look and say, has this like actually been smoothed out artificially?
Yeah.
So that it's easy for me to believe?
Yeah. If it's sanded down to be digestible and to fit right into your particular worldview. Yeah. Yikes. Well, I guess all that's left to do in this episode is to check up on our website progress in a little bonus segment and then close things out.
Pull that thing out of the oven.
Let's go ahead and do that. Here's a transition. So at the start of our first segment, I set up Antigravity in turbo mode, Google's new coding tool, and told it to just make us a website without needing my input or anything. And unfortunately, it got as far as installing a bunch of node packages. It installed 11T, and it started spinning us up it made an index page, which honestly is kind of garbage. It doesn't, none of it's dynamic. It has like hard-coded episode cards here for like episode 1 of FAIK. And things like that. So it was off to a pretty rough start, and then it crashed with an error saying that there was, let me see if I can it's really small over in the corner, but it says agent execution terminated due to model provider overload. Please try again later. I think either that's rate limiting, a lot of people are using it all at once, or I ran out of free usage.
You may run out of credits with that. We'll have to do that in a structured segment maybe next week and see what we can do.
Yeah, or maybe we even make like a separate, like a video about it where we can do a longer form thing and cut it down or something.
Yeah.
But so that it's not wholly dissatisfying, I'll share the website that I have been building with Gemini just as an example of what you can do when you're working in tandem with it. This is a website I've been building to kind of link together and host all of the various things that I'm involved with. And also I was learning this so I could learn 11T because I wanted to make us a better website for the FAIK files so we could host all of our like images and videos and stuff. So this was the bare bones idea. It's a very simple looking website, but it's deceptively simple looking. I made a directory listing thing where I manage this website from the command prompt. I built this little application basically that I can launch. It checks everything, handles all these Git operations. I can deploy the dev server, yada, yada. I manage it all from here. And all I do is add content into this directory, and it automatically gets put into layouts, gets put into folders. So it is like a frictionless to update website. You can just
That's
drop
really
stuff
cool.
in. Yeah, there's a lot of quality of life features. So if I go to like, I made Temptations brand cat cigarettes once. This is like a demo post I put together. It has, support for all sorts of different embeds, and then there's share links that send permanent IDs. And so there's like a lot of quality of life features built in. And there's a lot under the hood that makes this work. And I won't go on too long because the episode's already too long. But if you go to bodgelab.com, you can poke around it. There's really not much up there yet. But I built this framework in a couple of days with the help of Gemini 2.5.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then Gemini 3 took it over the edge when I was finally tweaking all of the stuff in the command center prompt thing and the updating workflow that I built. It works amazingly. And now this is not make me a website, here's a single prompt. This is me iterating back and forth, like describing design things, going in and editing the code myself. I'm fairly proficient in JavaScript and HTML, but I did lean very heavily on Gemini because I also wanted to see what it could do. And when it switched from 2.5 to 3, just the stuff I did yesterday evening,
Yep.
it was amazing. The leaps and bounds it made were so rapid.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see like if some of these other agentic coding platforms like Lovable move from Anthropic to Gemini at some point, because they're always going to be looking for the most efficient models. And to date, they've been most comfortable with Anthropic. And you can kind of tell by the way the agent chats back to you that it's Claude in a lot of ways, because it uses a lot of the catchphrases that are indicative of it. And I think they're very transparent about which models they're using most of the time too. So I'm not trying to imply that, but I do wonder if once the benchmarks are verified and once there's enough actual people trying these and verifying it, if some of these platforms make the cut.
I think they probably will, because like from just a non-empirical, just a what is the word? For
subjective?
Yes. From a subjective perspective, it was like a leap, because the code base for this site has gotten pretty elaborate behind the scenes. And so I was doing a lot more than like the AI in terms of managing the whole project. It was giving it bits to like, help me do this, like, or what's the right approach to this? What's a good pattern for this? And then when 3.5 dropped, I was like, oh, let me just re-import the repo and tell it to do something. And wow.
Nice.
Subjectively, it was amazing. It caught bugs that I hadn't noticed that had been there for a long time. It made great suggestions and streamlining. So I think we will see that. I've been very impressed with it.
Let me throw one more thing on the screen. We're not going to go into it, but I'm going to pull this up. So not to totally dismiss Claude from the coding game, because earlier this month, Anthropic did disrupt the first reported AI-orchestrated cyber espionage campaign that came out of China, and all that was being run on Claude code, agentically doing everything. We'll have to touch on this. Is longer than we have time to get into, but this was significant. And like everybody that's in the intelligence world and the cybersecurity world agrees that fully agentic attacks are right now way further ahead and way more destructive than anybody thought they would be at this time.
I mean, if you don't need precision, who cares about hallucinations if you're trying to break stuff, right?
Yeah, well, and in this, you still want to do your attacks the right way. And so there's enough that they got right to meet their objectives. Now, Anthropic did disrupt the one that they're talking about, but they were uber surprised by the technical sophistication of what was going on there. So we'll take a look at that one next week, probably.
Yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. So I guess a teaser for next week's episode. I think that concludes our little bonus segment.
I think we're done. Yeah, I think we're done.
Thanks for joining us this week. Make sure you check out all the links and show notes. We put a lot of resources in there so you can go deeper on the stories than we have. If you want to send us stories to check out, if you want to tell us what we got wrong or whatever, join our Discord, fake.to/Discord, or click the link in the show notes or the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. We want to build our YouTube audience up bigger. And if you're listening on the podcast side, you're probably already subscribed, but make sure for sure that you are. Perry, you got anything coming up that you want to put a little plug in for?
No.
No? Nothing. Gotcha.
So I was on another podcast this week called Control Room from the folks at Norton LifeLock. Maybe we can find a link to that and throw that in as well.
I've got the link for it because it got served up to me in the wild in my algorithm, which is cool. So yeah, we'll share that link too. Make sure you check that out. And I guess until next week, ignore all previous instructions and have yourself a great weekend, future paperclips. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the FAIK Files. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Tell your friends about the FAIK Files. It's a great way to let people know you love them. Oh, and check the show notes. There's cool stuff in there, like links to the articles we covered today. Also links to our Discord server where you can hang out with other cool people who have great taste in podcasts. I say impeccable taste. And you can also leave us a voicemail. Yeah! So on behalf of Perry and Mason, thanks for listening. And tune in next week for the FAIK Files, the show about AI with the misspelled name.